What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of BYP with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. As always, we are brought to you by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. And check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Rumble, as well as 1029 The Game in Tampa and Broad Street South. Now, we got all that out of the way. We welcome in our good friend, Jovan Alford, always kind enough to join us on this Tuesday. A ton of stuff that we want to break down. And of course, he does a great job at Jovan10. And check him out on Twitter, part of FTN Bets. And of course, he's got the pod as well, totalsportslive.com. And good to talk to you again, my friend. How was your weekend?
Good, man. Good. Got watched some good NFL action, college delivered after a very quiet week 3. We got a very exciting week 4, so can't complain.
I always think there's one weekend in the NFL where just for some strange reason, you'll get 2, 3, 4 blowouts.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you caught these games, even if you teased them down, you kind of relax a little bit. But Kansas City with the route. Well, let me backtrack a second because I don't want to discount what Houston did as well against Jacksonville. But you saw Kansas City win an easy win. You saw Miami with a easy win, and then you saw Buffalo with an easy win. I mean, Miami, first of all, you have to just love the irony, right? Because Sean Payton ran his friggin' mouth, and you can tell this might be one and done with him and Russ. You just almost get the sense that I'm like, I kept refreshing. You flip on red zone and it's boom, boom, boom. And I'm thinking, all right, 35. Now you got an ass kicking 40 something. Now you got the woodshed. Now you get into the 50s and I'm walking the friggin' dog. And then all of a sudden they put up 70. And, here's a head coach in Sean Payton who turned around that said, well, what's going to happen in Miami? Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater is going to supplant Tua.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get benched and he'll be a backup. And wow, I mean, listen, if you bet that game, hey, more power to you. You just sat back and relaxed, even if you tease it down or not. But I can't recall a team that just rolled over and a team on the offensive side of the ball that just is clicking on all cylinders. I mean, what did you make of that performance by Miami and the fact that Denver didn't even show up?
I think from the Miami side, I think it shows that they're the real deal. Like when Tua is healthy, they are good. And the fact that they have, I think last year we didn't think that they had some semblance of a running game, even though Mike McDaniel came from the school of Shanahan, where they have more running backs and with this running system. Well, they didn't have that running system. Now they do, right? They're from Raheem Mostert has found the fountain of youth. Like he's been outstanding. Devin A-Chain have been, again, a team like Miami draft them for a position, but what they're looking for, speed. They go get the speed running back. He comes in, just blows the whole Broncos defense out of the water with just how he was just able to play. And the crazy part is they did this without Jalen Waddle, which is the scary part. There is no Jalen Waddle, and they were still able to dominate. And I think that just shows what they did last year and what they're able in there, how they're evolving. I think my guy Emery Hunt mentioned on Twitter saying how they're playing almost CFL style football, because it is like we're seeing a lot of motion, it's hard enough stopping Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle when they're set at the line of scrimmage, but when you got them flying in motion, snapping the ball, there's only so much you can do. And then on the Denver side of things, I can't even be mad at Russell Wilson, right? Because he can't play defense. If he can play defense, then they would have a chance. He didn't play like outstanding in match to it, but it was good enough if the defense could get some stops. And I think that's more of an indictment on Sean Payton and Vance Joseph that your guys were missing tackles, and you saw some of the touchdowns. Guys are just literally just like, all right,
Olay.
Is what it is.
It was
like,
Olay. It was just
let them go. We'll live to see another down, and it's just that's just horrible. And like you said, Sean Payton doesn't look good. He probably should have stayed in the TV booth where he probably was meant to be, at this point of his career.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it almost reminds me like the whole Gruden conversation. He's
Yep.
past his time as a head coach.
Hmm.
Um, and you're just going to hire him because of the name. Like, hey,
Yep.
you want to sign the player because of the name on the back of the jersey. Cleveland, Detroit, Miami, the Bills, the Texans. You know, last night the Eagles, the Chiefs. I mean, we're talking these games where San Francisco not even relatively competitive. I mean, that was the weekend to catch. You know, to maybe put some coin in the pocket. It's far and few. You look at the Bills, they rebound. I don't know if maybe I mushed Washington talking about Eric Bieniemy, talking about um, their offense. Just I, I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. Are we looking at Josh Allen? They start to figure it out, and then I'm waxing poetic about Sam Howell. And the kid has 4 interceptions and doesn't even break 170 yards. And then I thought the most bizarre game, just to show parity in the NFL, was Arizona.
Yep.
12 and a half, 13-point dog against Dallas. And they kind of handled Dallas relatively easy.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals, and I've been thinking about this even going back to the game against the Giants. They
Yeah.
remind me of the Falcons last year. Remember how the Falcons, they weren't like winning games, but they were that underdog against the spread where it was like, you can trust this team to cover because they're going to play hard and they're not going to so much make the mistake that kind of put them in danger. And I
Yep.
think, like you said, we look week one, they had a chance to win and in Washington when they didn't do it. Obviously, the Giants, that was just the team there in Arizona that didn't know how to finish and close a game. And then what happens when they play against the Cowboys? They play a full 4 quarters and finish the game as the way they started. And then jumped out on them quickly. And then that's what you have to do if you're the Cardinals. Nobody expects anything from you. So you have to come out, throw everything to the wall and say, we're
Yeah.
playing our hearts out. And I think that gotta give credit to Jonathan Gannon. Gotta give credit to Josh Dobbs. He's won't be the starter for long, when Kyler comes back, but he's making a good impression on what he's doing so far.
Yeah, and I read a story too. He couldn't even find himself a jersey in some of the local
Yeah.
stores, right? I mean, but
Yeah, the
he
team
seems like a
shop.
real, yeah, he seems like a likable guy, and he finally got a win. And there's something to be said about, just pursuing, right? Just
Yeah.
grinding and staying the course. And then impressive wise, listen, that's a big win for Green Bay, right? I mean, because they were
Hmm.
down big. Everyone's starting to look at Jordan Love. Here you go, start the season on the road, 2 straight games, come home, your home opener. And you play well, man. I think that was a gut check win for Green Bay. And I know that car got banged up, but Love, listen, he put up some good numbers. They were able to run the ball. Again, I'm sure they want to try to run it a little more. You take away his 39 yards of rushing, they're right around 60 or so, but distributed the ball. I thought that was a real character win for that young quarterback.
Oh yeah, I think Jordan Love is like being like constantly underrated. And it's because, right, we did not know, right? Because the last time we saw him start a game, that in KC was like he might not look like he can hang,
Right.
as a starting quarterback, but he's proven himself well. And I think the more impressive thing about the Green Bay's offense is he's been doing it the last couple of weeks without Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, which I think is, more impressive. Romeo Dobbs, who kind of had that rough rookie season, he's starting to look like the guy that we saw coming out in Nevada and making plays. And then you got the rookie tight end Luke Musgrave, who really wasn't a factor in college, but it's starting to become a weapon. And then you just have just other guys, we're talking about Dontavius Wicks and a whole bunch of cast of wide receivers making plays. And hey, if you're a Packers fan, you gotta be pretty excited because with the way this division is shaking out, you have a strong chance of winning this division.
Which actually, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you kind of segued into with the division and Minnesota losing again to the Chargers. I have no problem with some of the play calling with the Chargers. They just can never figure out a way to just, um, convert the play at times. It was a little unorthodox, but we understand analytics. Listen, Minnesota is 0-3 right now. And I think we're looking at this, the Jets, they trade or they signed who was the veteran they signed? The kid that played in Denver.
Trevor Simeon.
Yeah, Trevor Simeon, right? So, um, listen, I know why they did it. They need some depth. Obviously, you look at um, Zach Wilson, he's not the answer. But I don't think Minnesota will trade Kirk Cousins right now, because what if they win a couple games and Detroit falters, Chicago's a bad
Mm-hmm.
football team, and then Green, what if they're hanging around? So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I don't know. I mean, do you think at the end of the day he gets traded?
That's tough. It would be, I mean, if they trade him, it will look, if they trade him, that's obviously signaling like we're rebuilding at this point, which you then go back to that conversation of, hey guys, why didn't you draft a quarterback in the draft to have that heir apparent? But I think what you said is true. It comes down to what they do in their next few games, and you look at their schedule. They're at Carolina, which may or may not be a winnable game, right? If Andy Dalton is playing, there could be a loss. And if they lose to Carolina, then you might have to sound alarms because you have KC after that. Granted, you're going to be at home, but then you got the Bears and then the 49ers. So it's not easy sledding after what they've done so far. So even if they beat Carolina, sadly to say, I could see them being 1-4 going against Chicago. And even if they win, they're 2-4. How can you how can you
Because you
how
never
can you
know. I mean, if you're
right.
500 after 8 games and you're only a game or two behind, you're banking on, and the trade deadline's not till late October. So
Yeah, right.
that's kind of like the rub right there when it comes down to it. Listen, he's got a no trade clause. We understand that. He would instantly be a fit with the Jets and the offense. For the life of me, I think it's a situation where um, Zach Wilson, you cannot, under any circumstances, and I don't understand um, why in the world, the brass and ownership and Douglas and Robert Saleh believe that this kid's the answer, and they're doubling down, and they want to keep sending him out there. The kid stinks. He's not an NFL quarterback. Everyone's piling up on him. He's got zero confidence. And now you start to get in this situation where the players are getting ticked off, his teammates
Mm-hmm.
are getting ticked off, and it's just not a good fit. He's never going to be that franchise quarterback. They put all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. And by the way, I don't need to hear about Aaron Rodgers sitting there saying, I don't like what I see from my teammates. Dude, you had a freaking cup of coffee, 4 snaps with the Jets. Stop. Seriously. I mean, enough is enough. Just stop with that nonsense, right? I'm sorry. I had to say it. I know it's unpopular, but I had to say it. But I just don't know, why are you doubling down if you're Robert Saleh? Like, are you trying to get yourself fired? Like, why are you insisting that you're going to stick with this kid going forward? And it's clear that he is not an NFL quarterback. It is clear he cannot lead this offense. It is clear he has no idea how to win football games. It's just insanity, and it's malpractice because, again, you can still be a competitive team with a quarterback who has some sense of ability and
Right.
talent, and maybe compete for a playoff.
Yeah, no, I think Salah's doing it to number one. I think probably just to not throw his quarterback under the bus, like showing that public like support, like he's still our guy, and publicly still showing support in him. But I mean, come on. I mean, last 2 weeks, this Jets offense has only scored 10 points with Zach Wilson under center. I mean, I think against the Patriots, what he was 18 to 36, was sacked multiple times. I think his pass yardage per play or attempt was 4.4 or something like that.
He's
Like it's
not
not
good.
good.
He's not,
It's
like,
not
why are
good.
you afraid? Even a backup, even just giving an opportunity to a backup, like, it's just, I hate to say, bring in anyone, um,
I mean, anyone possibly could do it. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater could do it. A Jacoby Brissett.
What
could do it.
probably run the offense. Not a bad
Yeah.
quarterback, journeyman. You know, they've won some games in the past. It's just
And Andy Dalton, if you had if he was out there, could do it.
it just it makes no sense. I don't understand. I feel as though this head coach right now realizes that the season's lost.
Yeah.
But now it's like I'm gonna die with my boots on. Like I'm gonna just keep pushing for this kid just because at this point I want to. And this is when you start to lose the locker room, when you have the offense bickering with the defense. We already saw it. We saw the backup running back. We see the wide receivers. They're sitting there saying in so many words, what the hell's going on with the offense? To me, it's almost a fireable offense. Like I cannot give Robert Saleh a free pass because Aaron
No.
Rodgers went down.
Yeah, no. If anything, it falls on him to, put his team in the best position to win by any means necessary. And that starts with at quarterback, finding somebody to make the offense go. Like just putting the offense, just having a quarterback that can make the correct reads and, putting your offense in manageable downs to, because there's too much talent on that offense for them to not be scoring more than 10 points a game. You got Brees Hall, you got Dalvin Cook. I know Dalvin Cook ain't signing for this. You got Alan Lazard, you got Randall Cobb, you got Garrett Wilson. I mean, the talent's there. It's there for them. And while they're spending a roster spot on, Trevor Siemian, they could be finding themselves and making a trade for another veteran quarterback that might be out there, and having him sit and watch for a few weeks to learn, and then throw him in there. But then at that point, if you lose 2 more games, you're 1-5, 1-4, come
1-4.
on,
They're
like,
done. They're done
yeah,
regardless. It's just
yeah, it's a bad spot. Matt Castle ain't walking through that door. Like,
no. Joe Namath, not what Richard Todd, Ken O'Brien, Sanchez, testify. None of them,
Testaverde,
right? None of them. None of them. None of them.
Ray
But
Lucas ain't walking through that door.
man, right? I mean, seriously, Tom Brady certainly isn't. I don't blame him either. All right. Eagles last night. Again, a little sluggish with the offense, but I know Jalen Hurts was under the weather, still played well, aside from, the turnover. But again, they basically still put up 500 something odd yards of offense. And it's so funny, right? Because you had a great wide receiver who was like, all right, I'm getting a little tired of this crap. I need to get my reps. I need to get my targets. And what did they do last night? They turned around and they didn't force feed it to the stud, but they were able to distribute the ball yesterday. And again,
Yes.
it speaks to the fact that offensively, even though they're sluggish at time, you're starting to see them get separation with who really is now going to be the lead running back. I think it's pretty evident. The offensive line is the offensive line, but Swift was a monster last night, and they were able to get the ball to AJ Brown, and he had, I think, 8 or 9 receptions for about a buck 30 or so. So listen, they're 3-0. The defense played well. They're making plays. They're getting to the quarterback. You look at this team right now, they've got Washington coming up. I think, was it the Rams after that?
Yep.
And then the Jets. I mean,
Then the
they'll be
Dolphins week
6.
7.
Yeah, they'll be 6-0 before they take on Miami.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an Eagles fan, I mean, that's the best possible case scenario, because you always wonder how teams after Super Bowl, win or loss, how do they play and how do they kind of get themselves prepared to go through that rigor again. And like you said, this Eagles offense, I think they finally realize what they are, which is you're a run first, pass second team, which is okay. I think they were trying to force feed the pass early in games 1 and 2, and then they figured out, why do we have to do that when you have one of the, like you said, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and a running back in DeAndre Swift who's capable of carrying the ball and making plays, and he's doing it. And we saw, the passing game starting to come along, and I think that's also a credit to Brian Johnson. I think he's starting to figure out, his rhythm as a play caller, and you're starting to see it work. Like you said, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, after having a quiet, start to the season, he got, some targets, which is a good thing. Like you said, Hurts with the turnovers. I know people were finding ways to nitpick that last night, but I mean, the one interception, I get it. just a misfire. The second one, that's a quarterback taking a shot, deep. I mean, he took a shot deep, and it just so happened that D Delaney made an excellent, play and still was able to keep his feet in. But the touchdown pass to Zacchaeus, where he stood in the pocket and gets lit up.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
And how about the other one when he scrambles out a little bit, right? I mean,
and throws it across his body, and it's right dropping the bucket.
Should have been picked, but when you watch it again, it actually was a perfect throw, and he's a very good quarterback. I mean, there's no, people can nitpick all they want. It's just they're built, they have depth with the line, they have depth on the defensive side of the ball, they have the running backs by committee. Now you're starting to see, maybe it was just a thing where Gainwell was really just kind of like the, play a little possum, right? We're going to have him as a de facto number one running back, but it's obviously the kid Swift. I think right now, Miami, Buffalo, the 49ers, Kansas City, the Eagles. I mean, it's how you want to rank them. The Bills are starting to get in that rhythm again, where they'll start to go on a little bit of that run. And then obviously you got, the middle of the pack, and then you got the teams that are pretty much shot. I mean, a lot of people were looking at Carolina to be a surprise team. Now they're dealing with some injuries with the quarterback and inconsistent play, and they're 0-3. It's just the NFL, I think by week 4 or 5, what we see is what we get, meaning we'll start to see teams, and man, they're not good. That's kind of who they're going to be for the rest of the season. And hey, this team really good, and this is how they're going to be for the rest of the season. I mean, it makes it interesting too when you look at some of these lines from a betting standpoint, and even when you start to talk about front runner for MVP, right? Because I think, I mean, right now it's got to be Tua.
Yeah, I think the last time I checked on, I want to say Sunday night, I think Tua was the front runner for MVP by a considerable margin. We're talking about odds around 380.
Yeah,
that's Mahomes type, odds that we would see, and you can't blame him.
Yeah, but here's the problem though. The one thing you got to be careful with him is he might get hurt.
Yeah,
and I love the kid. I really do. I'm a huge Tua fan. I love that offense. They're fun to watch. He's got that swag, he's everyone was knocking the placement and his arm strength. I mean, I turn around, I watched some of these games the other day, and it looked like some of these quarterbacks were it looked like last night Mayfield was straining every time he tried to throw the football. Then you look at Tua and it just looks, effortless. And I'll tell you, man, if they win that division,
it's all about the offense and tailoring it around your quarterbacks, what their strengths are.
That's it. And guys in motion, misdirection, speed kills, man. And it's just scary to think that you have to score 35 plus to perhaps beat this team.
Yeah. And not many teams in the league can do it. That's the crazy part. And the teams that you mentioned are probably the only ones that can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Man, it's such a long season. You can hit a wall, you can lose 2, 3 in a row. I mean, Kansas City a couple years ago, I think they were 3-4, 4-5, and they were plus 350 to win the AFC West. They won 6, 7 in a row. They wound up, making a deep run in the playoffs, getting back to the Super Bowl. So it is so cliche, but you start to see, man, there's some really bad football. I mean, Chicago, there's a part of me that now I just almost feel bad for Fields, and everyone's talking about the head coach, but think about the GM a couple of years ago and some of the head coaches that he hired and some of the moves that they made and some of the quarterbacks that they drafted that haven't panned out. I don't know if I don't know if Fields can play in the NFL. I know one thing, he's constantly running for his life. He's been sacked, I think, 104 times in 2 years and 3 games.
Yeah, I think that's the crazy part. We cannot get a clear evaluation of him because of the circumstances, right? And if you move off of Eberflus and Luke Getsy, that's going to be Phil's third head coach and coordinator last year, and you can't you can't expect the quarterback, I don't care who it is, to be solid in the league. So you look at that, like you said, the offensive line, he's always running for his life. And I always say this every week, they don't have an identity. They don't have an identity. And again, we just mentioned, they don't tailor the offense around what the quarterback does best. They need to, and you wish, like I said before, you wish he had a Sirianni or a Peterson or the enemy or a Steichen where they just, or even a Kevin O'Connell.
They need they
You wish they just had that.
Yeah, I think the problem is when you're young and he's struggling the way he is, and that franchise is toxic. It's a losing friggin' franchise,
Yeah.
from management to ownership down. And you feel bad for some of these guys, man, because they're putting it on the line, every single Sunday. I just think this kid needs a fresh start. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a serviceable quarterback. We had the conversation with the Trey Lances of the world. But man, I just, if it continues this way, who's to say this is who he is going forward and he's just stuck.
Yeah, because of everything that's happened.
Yeah. And then you look at, and I say it to say this, right? It shows you the quarterback position is just so goofy. You got Carson Wentz out there. And yet the Jets are not calling him, which kind of tells you something. So he basically pissed off the Eagles, Washington, and Indianapolis. I mean, he's run through 3 teams and he can't even find a job right now
to be a backup.
As a backup, when you look at just how bad some of the quarterbacking in the NFL is, like there's probably 5 or 6 quarterbacks you can really hang your hat on. But even those guys sometimes will have an off night. And then you look at some of these young guys, and then you look at, the Lances and the Fields of the world. And then we talked a little bit about the rookies, the second, third, tier type of quarterbacks. And if they're drafted and it's a bad fit, it ruins their career, period. I mean, they don't stand a chance in hell. I mean, the Bears are doing a disservice right now because they're not putting the pieces around this kid. And from the GM to the head coach, they're clueless.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because if I'm the Bears, I'm trying to do what we say about Hurts, run first, pass second offense. And it's not like you don't have the running backs. You have the running backs. Your offensive line, is not great. So what's the best thing to do? Put them in run block and just let them just mow guys down. So if you get that running game going, you allow Fields to make plays in the quarterback design run. Maybe that opens up, the DJ Moores to get open, the Darnell Mooney's to get open, the Cole Kmets to get open, who these guys aren't slouches by any means. But if you don't have a head coach that knows what he's doing and an offensive coordinator that doesn't have a system, then you're leaving these guys out there to kind of figure it out on themselves. And you can do that in practice. You can't do it in a live NFL game.
Got about a minute or 2 before I let you get out of here. What's the best matchup for the Phillies?
Ooh, that's a good question. Best matchup. I would say probably the Reds or the Marlins. I feel like, just the Reds, if the Reds get there, I think, the Reds game plan would just be to try to outscore because just their pitching
2.5 back right now, 2.5 back.
Yeah. So you would think, if they're playing the Reds are going to try to score as many runs as they can, just because pitching wise, they're kind of leaking oil. Marlins, they got the arms right. Obviously, no Alcantara, which is a very big blow to them, but they got pitching, but can you depend on their offense? I don't know if you're Phillies. I don't think if you're Phillies, you don't want to see the Diamondbacks because they can throw Gallen and Kelly out there, and those guys can win a series, I think. And the Cubs, I think that's a scary team. Justin Steele is amazing. And the way that offense is turned around the second half with Bellinger.
They were left for dead.
It's crazy.
They had a stretch too where they were scoring 5, 6, 7, 8 runs. The Reds, you talk about, they've got, their lineup from top to bottom. You got 5 or 6 guys that are hitting 15 or more home runs. I think they got 184 total home runs, so they can score as well. But again, you get the benefit of being in that ballpark. So if that's the case,
Yeah.
no, it might be some crazy kind of games as well. So all right, we'll dive into week 4 a little later in the week. But for everyone out there, if they want to follow you on social media, plug away.
Yeah, for sure. Again, thanks for having me on as always. Follow me on Twitter, or if they call it X, wherever you want to call it, at Jovan10. You can check out and read my stuff over at ftmbets.com. Have some Thursday night player props up, along with some college football best bets later in the week. So we'll be hammering away week 5 to see how that goes. And then at the gamedayfootball.com, having just dropped my game props for week 4 already. And then obviously we'll have my week 4 parlays and week 4 player props as well this week.
All right, we look forward to it. In a couple weeks, we'll start to dive into, dare I say it, NBA.
The NBA.
I'm watching last night. I'm watching Game 6, 1994, Chicago and the Knicks, because they have all the classic games. I
Oh
watch
yeah.
the Heat in Indiana. I watch 88 and 89. I watched Isaiah's game in 88, where he came down awkward on the angle. The oh man, and it's totally escaping me. And I'm so good with old basketball. This is killing me. The Lakers won 1 game against the Bulls in that series, and it was game 1. And who was it? Sam, the lefty for the Lakers back in the day, hit a 3-pointer against the Bulls, and they won game 1 of the finals. And then the Bulls scored 4 straight. He always looked like he was stoned.
That's not Sam Perkins, right?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. They stole a game on the road. Jordan tried to tie it in and out, and then the Bulls won 4 straight. So yeah, I watch all those
how the
classics.
dynasty started.
Yeah, yeah, I watch all those classic. You started to see that team was building when they lost to the Celtics in '86, and the Celtics had a ridiculous team in '86. But again, over the hump, got to get through teams, right? Got to get through Boston. Boston, got beat. Detroit had to get through them. The Bulls had to get through Detroit. You just saw it building, building, and building. It is, to some extent, kind of like the NFL,
Yep.
because if you can beat divisional teams, your foes, and you can start winning, you win the division, you make these runs in these playoff games, and some teams have your number, and you finally crack in and get over the hump, then
Everything starts to open up.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get into some NBA sooner rather than later. So, all right, brother. Always appreciate you jumping on a Tuesday edition of BYP. We'll do it again.
For sure.